Very good morning, everyone. Namaskar. So let us start with our session. We will start the session as usual with the channel. I can see your videos becoming more blurred. So can you all hear me properly? Okay, fine, great. Very good. Close tight. Slowly inhale. Thank you. So last class we had done understanding Neti and how to prepare a sutra for Neti, how to go about with the cleansing or rinsing in the frictional method. So benefits out of this Neti Shuddhi Kriya, Kapala Shodhani, Divya Drishti Pradayini, Jatru Urtva Chat Roga, Augham Neti Rashu Nihanti. So this Neti Shuddhi Kriya, which is Sutra Neti, cleanses our frontal sinus, bestows perfect vision, and destroys a multitude of for the region of our shoulder. As I understand, it is our collarbone, this region. Skanda is our shoulder and Jatru is our, हम इसे हिंदी में हंसुलियां कहते हैं. So above the collarbones, that means right from the throat region up to the head, skull, all the organs which are connected to any of the malfunctioning, or you can say ailments, disorder, they are taken care of with the help of Neti. Next, we are entering into Trataka. Nirikshena Nischala Sukshma Laksham Samahitah Ashtu Sampat Paryant Acharya Tratakam Smrutam. The teachers of yoga who taught us the technique of Trataka, they say keeping the gaze steady or keeping your eyes steady on one point. One should attentively stare at a small object until tears come out. Now, what happens to these tear glands? As the muscles are getting strained, as the optic nerve is getting strained, from our nervous system or our brain, which tells the functioning of the protective system to release the lubricating material so that whatever strain is which is happening or taking place on the eyes should be taken care of. And this thousands of tear glands, they start releasing the fluid and which helps us to let the tears come out. Now this is not only secreting the tears but at the same time cleansing of. There are many versions to this Tratak. But here, whatever Tratak is mentioned, it is the steady gaze. It is mentioned only about the steady gaze. focused you are on a point with Sukshma. When we say how Sukshma is that point or that object, it can be any object kept at a distance of minimum 3 foot and maximum 20. We also call this as Sudur and Samipa is closer, Sudur is farther. This can be a dot drawn on a paper or on a wall, a level of your eye. As you see, you are focusing. It should not be above your eye level, below your eye. So nowadays we have the stand to keep the candle or the lightened candle, the flame in a dark closed room acts like a non-flickering flame for the practice of Trataka. From the outer portion of the flame, we are slowly going to the inner layers. And that inner layer becomes the Sukshma observation of our Trataka. So this is how we help our tear glands or our eyes to secrete this lubricating material and help our eyes to get cleansed. There is another way of doing Pratakriya to lead ourselves to Sukshma. Imagine having concentric circles. Between every larger circle, there is another inner circle which is of a short circumference. Going on this way, coming to the last, there is a very small circle in between. And when you are converging from the gaze to the minute internal center one, you will find that your eyes are getting strained. And this straining of the eyes is of the lubrication, doing the lubrication for the eyes. So this is how Tratak is practiced. Now, when I talk about Antar Tratak, this concept was never laid to us in our institution, but at the same time, when I started same from other institutions, we came across many other types of. So there were types like doing Trataka on the rising sun, doing Trataka on the moon, doing Trataka on the crescent moon, doing Trataka on a particular star. How far these objects are Sukshma and how far these objects are helping you to really secrete the tears from the tear glands, that matters a lot. So that is the way that you should and go ahead. The next shloka says, Mochanam netra roganam yata ataka kitakam. It should be safely guarded as the casket of the treasure, as we usually do. Because this is that which cures the diseases of the eyes, words of the laziness, or you can say sloth, etc. That's why it should be valued a lot. And we started doing certain experiments on people who used to say that we are having the bad habit of procrastination. We are under the influence of pramada, carelessness. We are having a longer sleep duration and we still feel sleepy. And we started introducing this Tata Kriya to them. And we found that it was really very helpful. In fact, people with thyroid issues, now nowhere this is written in any of the therapy textbook. People suffering from thyroid imbalances, toward hypothyroidism, people sleep a lot. And when we introduced Trata Kriya, we literally found that their sleep was getting organized and they were no more getting into that kind of sloth or laziness and sleeping mode. which was leading to the obesity for them because of their thyroid secretion. Their thyroid secretion did not get balanced only because of Trataka, but Trataka was helping to manage those symptoms which were outcome of the thyroid imbalance. So this is how it was helping people to overcome their issues. And that's why it is said, okay, one should guard this as a casket. Guard this means what? One should practice it regularly and become more and more adept in it. The more you know it, the more and better you have it. The more and better you have it, it is like you are guarding it. Otherwise, if you are doing once in a while, once in a month, you will find that you are not getting the benefit of the same that much, and at the same time, you are losing the ability and capacity to do it for that longer period and enjoy the benefit of the same. So that's where it is said that we should be practicing it for the longer period and for health of our eyes. That conditioning effects does takes place. So here we have done Nauli, sorry, not Nauli. Nauli is yet to come. Niti Prataka. Any questions, any doubt in your mind related to these two practices?
And nature cure,
Ah,
there are also some eye exercises in nature cure.
yeah.
But none of them, I think, asks us to focus. In fact, they want to defocus.
Yeah.
That's what I feel, because I have done some of those exercises, like Karatala
Or
Vishram. Karatala Vishram, then Surya, taking the sun rays in the early morning, but never focusing on the sun.
for your information, defocusing is really take you focusing. Focus will lead you towards focusing. When I say defocusing leads to focusing, defocusing is something which removes you from the things of you know अनवांटेड इंटरेस्ट इस पे ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं देना है. This doesn't matter at all. So what we do, literally we defocus on that matter or on that fact, and we become focused on something else. Maybe defocusing is one of the way, and at the same time it will lead to focusing only. In fact, there are many more. When we say the Netravaran, as you were saying, is just closing the eyes like this. We used to have blinking of the eyes. And along with blinking of the eyes, there is Netra Sankoch and Netra Vistar. Sankoch is very involved. Yes, sir. Sir, you are mute. Sunil bhai, you are mute.
I'm saying we are losing you in between. You know.
Hello. Am I audible clear now? Yeah, better. Okay, fine. So, blinking of the eyes, squeezing of the eyes, and then stretching of the eye muscle. Then, as you said, Netravaran, like giving our eyes that kind of dark veil cover from the light, and at the same time, having obstructed light on our eyes. Obstructed light means was the light is continuously there. Sometimes we close it, sometimes we open. Sometimes we close it, sometimes we allow that rays to fall on our eye. Apart from this, we go to the wash basin, the portable tap water. We take it in our hand and splash it on our closed eyes, not opened eyes. We splash that water on our closed eyes. That has this even this helps in soothing the nerves of our eyes and help our vision to become better. There are other like Vividha Disha Drishti, Urdhva Drishti looking up, Adho Drishti looking down, Dakshina right, Vam left. So sometimes we do Nit Drishti Chalan from right to left, and we do up and down. That is Urdhva and Adho. The changing of the gaze from up to down, from right to left, is like exercising the eyes. So in nature cure, ideally, these are for the purification, no doubt. And at the same time, they are like eye exercise for the well-being of the eyes. But nowhere we find this kind of explanation about cleansing of the eyes in any of the Hatha Yogic texts. They have mentioned about Trataka. They have mentioned about looking into Shunya. There is something like Shambhavi. There is something like a Bhuchari. But there is no mention of doing all these kind of eye exercises in order to cleanse our eye. But at the same time, these exercises are really beneficial for the eyes. They reduce the power and improve our vision. And you will also see that because of those exercises, mentally or nervous system wise, we are becoming little bit more alert, sharper, and in awareness. So what you said is correct, sir. In Nature Cure, it is mentioned, and many of the other textbook also you will see about the cleansing of the eyes. These are the things which have been told as Netra Shodhanam. So what you said is correct, and I have added 3-4 more to it.
No,
Yeah.
Jaikumar ji has taught eye exercises to start with.
That is very
when
nice.
When he has started teaching me, he has first this left, right, up and down, and diagonal, sideways and down, sideways and down. So that is what we start with in his class.
Yeah. There are many more things to add to that, but at the same time, as you are doing it practically in the class and going ahead with that, it is really very beneficial. So we should continue with it. Coming to next.
Yes. So we find, that there is, for example, Basti in Hatha Yoga, and there is Basti in Ayurveda. There is, Tratak in Hatha Yoga, and there are various kinds of exercises in Nature Cure, etc. Could it be that Hatha Yoga practices have a kind of dual or triple kind of benefit, or they're working on multiple levels? In that they allow for cleaning, but also as a subtle level, they're influencing the human system. Would it be fair to assume that?
There were studies, and even people who were not practicing yoga, and they were general people, it was very much understood. Hatha Yogic Shuddhi Kriyas, if they are taken directly to the people, that itself is helping them to overcome many of the, you can say, helping them to make their efficiency better and better, and overcoming the inability where they were falling short of in comparison to the others. So if you see, there are many studies which have been done on Trataka related to the concentrating power of the brain with respect to kids or with respect to adolescents. Adolescents are, you can say, very, very fickle. They are not focused. They are very much always from one to the other or other to the other. They are always distracted and deviated. But there are studies on Trataka itself to make the adolescents focus, and Trataka has helped. So cleansing like Neti, Basti for digestion or the colon cleansing, and for the eyes, if you take Trataka, in a way, the system connect to the brain, and the pathways to the organs and the brain, they are getting cleansed. As a whole, as an organism, our overall ability is improved. Whether that person needs Shuddhi Kriya or not, it is always better to start everyone to learn Shuddhi Kriyas first and then embark on the other practices. As in Gheranda Samhita, the first chapter is emphasizing about Shatkarma only. And he says, let us start from Shatkarma and Asan, then we will understand the other further practices which are going to bring about and have a psychological impact. Because in his words also, when he says, Shatkarma Shodhanam, Asanena Dridata, and when it comes to Mudra, he talks about Sthairiam, steadiness. So that steadiness is more uh, psychological as well as physical. But at the same time, when it comes to strengthening Dridata, it is more physical. When it comes to cleansing, purification, it is more physical. And at the same time, he also adds that not only Tataka Kriya is only for the cleansing of the eyes, but at the same time, it is going to bring about the change in your thinking ability. The right thinking is also brought about by focus, training our mind to get, by training our eyes to get focused, because their indriya is working just as an organ of seeing. But what is getting trained is the mind, or you can say the brain, which is the seat of the mind. So this is how the things are brought about. And what you said is perfectly correct. There are many ways to understand the same thing. Through naturopathy, through Ayurveda, somewhere they have understood that directly focusing on disease is not going to help. But let us try to can bring about a kind of parity or a balance towards overcoming that problem, rather than directly going ahead and having the drug in order to heal that. As in our allopathy system, it happens that we are curing most of the time the symptoms rather than going to the root and allowing it to get healed. So this is how we can connect it, as you properly connected to that, shared nicely there.
See, for example, same thing I see, say Sukshmayam, for example, right? The Sukshmayam, on the face of it, looks like just hand and neck exercises. But from what we are told, or what we've kind of read from Swami Dhirendra Brahmachari and whatever is imbibed from his guru, it says even if you don't do anything else, Sukshmayam also has a effect on the subtle system, which is not apparent to us, but the system is so designed that while you get the physiological benefit, there is a subtle benefit that occurs, by itself. So I'm just wondering
like
whether
automatically
it applies to all the other things.
True, very true. There are certain traditional institutions which who do not accept Sukshma Vyayam at all. In fact, they are against the practice of Sukshma Vyayam. But again, as you rightly said, studies are proving that doing Sukshma Vyayam before yogic practices is always better. At least if not it was before, but in current scenario, the kind of lifestyle that we are living, it has become an important part. That way we have to understand and go ahead. Let's go ahead and understand the next, which is a very important one, which is known as Nauli. Now, Nauli Kriya is about the manipulation of the abdominal wall, or trying to bring about a kind of changes in atmospheric pressure and bring about the manipulation of the muscles. There are two things we have to always keep in mind while doing Nauli Kriya. One is the isolation, and the second one is pressure manipulation. Isolation of the abdominal wall by making the abdomen totally relaxed. And this isolated abdominal wall has to be brought into action with pressure manipulation. Now, there are two types of pressure acting in that manipulation of the abdominal wall. One is the Rinadab, or you can say the negative pressure. Negative pressure is the suction which is created in the abdominal region because of the changes in the chest region. And then, as this negative pressure is created and the abdomen is getting sucked in or caved in, with the help of pressure manipulation, that means with the help of your hands, you're keeping it on the thighs and pressing it there and allowing the abdominal wall to get isolated and mobilized. If you're pressing only the right thigh, both the abdominis rectus will move to the right. In fact, I should say the right abdominis rectus is mostly leading there. The left cannot come to the right. And in the very similar way, same thing happens to the left. The left rectus abdominis is prominently seen. But when both the hands are pressed on the thighs simultaneously together, we can see Madhyanoli or the central one. That means both of them coming together, the recti, which is a plural version of rectus, they come together and show us as if there is a kind of trunk, stem there in the front of our abdomen. And now skillfully, we are maneuvering this pressure manipulation on the isolated abdominal wall. And as we are doing this maneuvering, we are keeping 4 things in the mind. In fact, out of these 4, 2 things are very important. One is the Uddiyana, that is Uddiyana Bandha, which we independently, not that of the pranayam, which we do by retaining the breath in. But the Uddiyana or Uddiyan Bandh will exhale out completely. As we retain the breath out, we are just allowing the chest to expand. And as you do that, automatically the abdomen is caving in. As the abdomen caves in, it is as if like the abdominal wall has gone and touched the spinal column. So what happened to those organs which were there between the abdominal wall and the spine in the abdominal cavity? In fact, because of the expansion of chest and the emptiness in the chest and the negative pressure which was created in the chest cavity, the diaphragm went up. See, usually the diaphragm is the dome shape. As we inhale, the diaphragm comes to this level. As we exhale, it again goes up. Why it comes down as we inhale? Because the lungs are filled with the air and the diaphragm comes down. The lungs get emptied as we exhale. That's why diaphragm goes to its original position. And this diaphragm is like a wall between the chest and the abdominal cavity. Though there is a passage for the food pipe to go down, for the largest artery, the aorta, to go down and supply blood to the lower limbs. All this is there, the passage is there, but still it is so airtight packed that nothing from the chest cavity can enter into the abdominal cavity. And when we such kind of expansion of the chest and create a vacuum over here, what happens is the pulling of the organs from the abdominal region, which go and get sucked up. That's why Uddiyana is coming after the name flying. To Ud means to fly, and Uddiyana means we are creating kind of changes in our body where all the internal organs and the abdominal wall are going back and pulled up. Now here, there is one thing which we have learned earlier was Agnisar. While doing Agnisar also, inhale, we exhale out, and retaining the breath out, we do the flapping of the abdomen. So you will say, if we're doing Uddiyan there, maybe partially you are doing Uddiyan, but it is not completely. Why? Because your abdominal muscles are engaged in that movement or the flapping of the abdomen. In Uddiyana, I still remember my teacher Neeraj Goel from Kaivaladham when I was doing advanced yoga in 2006. He said, when you are doing Agnisar, your abdominal wall should be hard like a steel plate. And when you are doing Uddiyana Bandha, your abdominal wall should be soft like cotton. Means when you keep your hand at the abdomen, you should feel that softness and the relaxed abdominal region in Uddiyana. And these two things proved to be so good in our evaluation also. Whenever a student who is trying to become a teacher, we used to go and evaluate them. And we used to check the diaphragm as well as the abdominal state. And we used to come to realize whether that person is doing it correctly or not, or he is doing something else. So here, as you have done this in Nauli Kriya, when you apply pressure on the thighs and the abdomen is very soft and pulled back, this abdominal wall, because of that pressure manipulation, get pulled out and get isolated. And that is where we say the Madhya Nauli is done. So Uddiyana and pressure manipulation. Now, pressure manipulation on which side? Uddiyana, pressure manipulation on the right side, Dakshina Nauli. Uddiyana again, and pressure manipulation on the left side, Vama Nauli. Pressure manipulation on both Uddiyana as well as the Madhya Nauli. Now here, when you skillfully manipulate the positioning of the hands, if you do right and left, there is Nauli Sanchalan, left and right. And if you do all the three together in one synchronized way, like Uddiyana, Dakshina Nauli, Uddiyana, Madhya Nauli, Uddiyana, Vama Nauli. So when you are doing Uddiyana and along with that, in between the Dakshina, Madhya and Vama, you will feel as if you are rotating, churning your abdominal wall or the recti from left to right in clockwise direction. And if you do the manipulation anti-clockwise, you can see that too. So this is the beauty of performing Nauli Shuddhi Kriya as we go and understand the movement of the isolated recti muscles and helping us to strengthen our the abdominal organs, not only their functioning or digestion, or you can say removal of the toxins. If you see in the benefit part, he has written it very nicely that it will not only make your gastric fire ignited, but at the same time, it is going to make you feel happy. So, the Nauli shloka, if you read, Amanda Avart Vegena Tundam Savya Savya Pasavyataha Natanso Brahmye Desha Naulihi Siddhaihi Prachakshate. Now, here in this water technical part which I had explained, that has not been given it here clearly. That is where we have to understand that we have to learn it under the guidance of a teacher. Only the teacher, the guru, knows how to go about with it, and he makes you understand. When you see the benefit of the same, it says Mant Agni Sandipanam Pachana Adi Sandhai Anandakari Sadaiva Ashesha Dosha Maya Shoshani Cha Hatakriya Muliriyam Cha Naulihi. So this Hatakriya or this Shuddhi Kriya is the king of all the cleansing practices. So this is where we are getting the clear understanding of the technique. What is that technique? With the shoulder bent forward, one should rotate the abdomen right and left with the speed of a fast rotating whirlpool. This is called Nauli by the accomplished yogis. And this is the same Nauli which is called as Lauliki in Gheranda Samhita. So, having understood this about the Nauli, if there is any doubt in your mind or clarification needed, please ask. Yeah, should we go ahead to the next? Yes, Sunil.
Is there any link with no, the number 9, by any chance?
Sorry?
Nauli, does it have any link with no, the number 9, by any chance?
I don't think so. It is not linked with that. Yeah. When we in Sanskrit, when we say 9, it is Nava. So now and Nava, it is not going to be the linking thing. So we have to always connect it with our Sanskrit language so that we are getting a hold of the same. Or अगर कभी वहां पे नवली ऐसा कुछ आ जाता तो फिर उस पे सोचने पे हम मजबूर हो जाते कि कहीं ये वो नव से तो कनेक्टेड नहीं जहां पर नव हमारा आता है। तो नव, दश, हाँ, अष्ट या फिर सप्त, षट, all these things we need to understand with the Sanskrit version because that time that language was there and हिंदी का नौ वहां पर तो बिल्कुल सोचने के लिए हमको जगह ही नहीं रह जाती। यस सर।
Mentioned that it is done by accomplished yogis,
हाँ,
which means it is out of reach for me.
no, who is accomplished yogi? Who has understood the technique from the teacher, first thing, and another thing is he has learned to strengthen his body. He has learned how to manipulate the breath. He has learned Uddiyana Bandha. He has learned how to stand properly and how that kind of thing. Now, accomplished yogi means, in fact, if we go with the version of Bhagavad Gita, all are born yogis. Only thing is that they have to first come to the learning part and they will come to know, yes, if I am behaving like this, I am a yogi. So we are all born yogis. Only thing is that we have to remove the unwanted thing and realize that we are yogis. So say accomplished yogi, that means that person who has literally come to the facts of yoga and have started understanding it and practicing it. Even a diseased person, even if a ailing person is there, he can do certain practices of yoga. But when we say accomplished yogi, then that diseased and ailing person may not be the right one to go about with the practice of Navali. So that is where it is said, okay, you should be taking care of all the contraindications. You should be taking care of all the limitations. You should be taking care of everything related to the knowledge of the performance of this Shuddhi Kriya. If everything is there with it, then you are an accomplished one. You can go ahead. Sorry, sir, you are mute.
But for me to perform Navali would be a big achievement if I am able to do it. It will take me 2-3 years.
It took 2-3 years to me also when I was started learning it at the age of 29, 30. So when I started, it came to me after 3 years, sir. And the day when I was able to do Navali, you just cannot imagine. जैसे एक बच्चे को माँ बाप ने अगर चॉकलेट दे दिया तो वो, it was a celebration for me on that day कि I got my Madhya Navali today and I was declaring it to everyone. आज मैं कर लिया, आज मैं कर लिया. So it is a celebration and nothing is difficult. It is only the effort that we put in. As you put that effort, you will find that it is becoming easier. In fact, it is a very easy practice. The word difficult is making difficult for you. वो आप अपने डिक्शनरी से ना योग के डिक्शनरी से बाहर निकाल दो उसको. Nothing is difficult. Yoga is very simple and very easy. Only thing is that your abhyas matters. If your abhyas is there, it is possible. Everything is accomplished. That's where you will also become an accomplished yogi. Age doesn't matter, sir. It will never matter. Let us go to the next one now. Yeah. Atha Kapal Bhati. Yeah, yes, sir. Mahendra
Sagar
bhai.
bhai,
Ji.
is any sequence is asked to be also to be followed as given in 22nd? The sequence like Dhauti, Basti, Tatha, Niti, whether Kriya should be learned and practiced and in the sequence that is given in Shloka 22?
No, not necessarily. In fact, I would suggest that what is needed by that person who is the practitioner. Some of may need more of dhauti karma. Some of us may need of basti karma. Some of us may need only neti. Some of us need nauli or something else. In fact, with our understanding, with our deficiency in the body, the part of the functioning, the functional organ or the functional part or the region in our body, which is lacking that ability to train and bring about the changes in that region, we need to employ that particular type of Shuddhi Kriya. But one thing you will go ahead in the, as we have seen in the previous first chapter also, he says very clearly, Asana Kumbhaka Mudrayakhyam and at last he says Nadanusandhan. Abhyasanu kramo hate. So he himself has made it very clear that this has to be the sequence. Asan, then Kumbhaka, and after Kumbhaka Mudra, and after Mudra we should get into the practices related to Samadhi, which are the higher practices, meditative practices, which will lead us into Nadanusandhan. Now, in the chapter of the second chapter of Hatha Pratipika of Kumbhaka, after Asan he has explained the Shuddhi Kriyas, and he has clearly mentioned it to us that people who are lacking that balance in the doshas should do Shat Karma. Otherwise, if you don't do Shat Karma, it is okay. This is the version of Swatmaramji. Whereas in Gheranda Sita, he makes it very clear that you first practice Shodhana Karma, then you think of practicing any other yogic practices. So here in Shat Karma also, if you are practicing any particular Shat Karma, we should see where we are lacking, where the deficiency is, where we are ailing, and accordingly practicing this will help us to improve that region, that organ, that system, and we will be able to do justice to further practices. Is that clear, sir? You got it?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you see, as you said, the sequence in Hatha Pratipika and the sequence in Gheranda Samhita is different. And even the sequence in Hatha Ratnavali, it is more different. So here it is said, Dhauti Basti Neti Tatha Nauli Tratakam Kapal Bhatis Chaitani Shat Karmani Prachakshate. If it is said this way, you see the Gheranda Samhita, in the first chapter itself, it is written the sequence and it is different. The Trataka and the Nauli placement is different. Nauli comes before Trataka, and here it is after. So here,
Yes.
so this sequence will not matter. In fact, the other yogic texts also where the Shat Karmas have been explained, Dhauti Karma has been first, Neti Karma has always been second. But when it comes to Basti, Trataka, Nauli, and Kapalbhati, they have been interchanged, sir. So the sequence part does not matter here. Okay. Let us go ahead
Okay, fine.
to the next. Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. भस्त्रावल्लोहकारस्य रेतपूरौ ससंभ्रमौ कपालभातिर्विख्याता कफदोष विशोषणी. In Neti we have seen Kapala Shodhanam, and in Kapalbhati we are seeing Kafadosha Vishoshani. In Neti, in the benefit, it is said that you will be able to take care of. Here, being Kapalbhati, the word, the brightening or the illumination of the forehead, as literally the word meaning comes to, Kapala is related to the whole skull. And Bhati, understand, it is not only the glowing or the proper functioning, but at the same time, a illuminated state of functioning of the Kapala. So this is where Kapalbhati becomes a very important practice in yoga. When he says Kafadosha Vishoshani, we are taking care of all the Kapha-related disorders, whether it is related to sinus, the nasal passage, or to the food pipe and windpipe, or related to our chest. Many a times, in fact, very recently, I saw in Times of India, maybe 15 days back, there was an article, and it was written in the article by a very known teacher. I should not take the name here, about how Kapalbhati is beneficial to reduce the fat in the abdominal region. Kapalbhati is not meant for reducing fat in the abdominal region. Use the circumference of our abdomen. And he goes on to write in that beautiful article, I should say, how Kapalbhati makes your waist region from 36 to 26. He is actually encouraging all the females that you can just practice Kapalbhati. Now, indiscriminate practice of Kapalabhati can lead to imbalances in females. Indiscriminate practice of Kapalabhati can lead to improper functioning of the hormonal system related to ovaries, related to the release of the releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones from the pituitary itself. So, we should always understand Yathashti Nirantaram. And as I was explaining to Ashutosh sir also, the accomplished yogi word. So accomplished yogi is getting all the information in the correct manner and making us able in order to do that particular practice, where Udyan Bandh is also essential, where pressure manipulation ke liye strengthening of the muscles is also essential, where we need to understand our breath also, that is also essential. So many things were essential. In Kapalabhati also, all these things are essential. Otherwise, in my 18 years of teaching, I have seen people getting back because of Kapalabhati. And when we told them stop doing Kapalabhati, because the way you are doing, it may not be helping you, they said our back pain has gone. Now here, we need to understand. Otherwise, there are people in our country who say, 1000 कपालभाति करो आपका ये ठीक हो जाएगा, 2000 कपालभाति करो वो ठीक हो जाएगा, या 3000 5000 कपालभाति करो, आधा घंटे तक कपालभाति करो. मुझे तो कभी कभी ऐसा लगता है मैं उधर ऐड कर दूं, तुम उठ जाओगे. We should not do this. We should act like a proper learned teacher, and that is very important, how to practice Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati has been said by our teachers that it depends how you do the practice in 1 minute. You start with 30 strokes, no problem. Slowly, gradually increase it to 60 to 90, and then come to 120, and at last come to 150. When you start as a 30 stroke in a minute, it is like doing 1 stroke in 2 seconds. And then when you do 6, it is like doing 1 stroke in 1 second. When you do 9, you are realizing 1.5 stroke in 1 second. When you do 120, you are doing 2 strokes in 1 second. And when you reach to the limit of 150, you are doing almost 2.5 strokes in 1 second. तो 1 सेकंड में 10 फ्रैक्शन सेकंड होते हैं, तो ज्यादा से ज्यादा आप अपनी एबिलिटी को अच्छा करते हुए 4 फ्रैक्शन सेकंड के अंदर 1 स्ट्रोक दे सकते हैं. ये हमारे एकम्प्लिश टीचरों ने खुद स्वामी कुवलानंद जी ने अपने प्राणायाम की बुक में एकदम क्लियरली ये लिखा हुआ है, हाउ टू गो अबाउट विद दिस प्रैक्टिस, बिकॉज ही हैज एम्फसाइज्ड Kapalabhati for the practice of Bhastrika, and he says the active inhalation and exhalation of Bhastrika can be started by doing the practice of Kapalabhati only, and go for the Purak from the right and Rechak from the left in order to complete a round of Bhastrika. This is how the preparation is to be done. And in Kapalabhati also, we should first understand whether that person has really come to that ability of his lung capacity performing. And my Guruji used to always say, when you do Kapalabhati strokes, your chest should not move. Your chest should be fixed. What is moving is diaphragm. As the diaphragm moves, certainly the abdomen will move. But the abdominal movement is the secondary movement. Primary movement is the flow of breath through the sinus into the lungs, or from the lungs through the sinus and out. Now here, in 4 fraction second, we are doing 1 stroke, or you can see in 1 minute we are going up to 120 to 150 strokes. In that case, how fast the diaphragmatic movement is taking place, and how fast the exchange of gas between the air that we have inhaled and expelled might have been taking place, how much carbon dioxide we might have expelled, or how much retention of oxygen might have taken place. In fact, it is found that maximum changes of the gases or the exposure of the oxygen is happening to the facial region, to the nerves or in your nose, in your eyes, or at your sinus region, the frontal sinus or the frontal lobe of your brain. They are more exposed to this superficial energy. Superficial in the sense, the one which is supposed to go to our lungs is exposed more to this region with that friction. And that is what is making our brain, our nervous system more alert and more, what you can say, efficient. And when we go ahead and do without understanding what is the ability of my chest and abdomen in order to do many strokes, no, please understand, as you all are teachers and you know it very well, this message should go to our students also, who will come understanding, I am first practicing Kapalbhati under the guidance of my teacher, and let my teacher take a decision or two related to my way of practicing Kapalbhati and guides me where I am exerting. Because while practicing Kapalbhati, there should not be any kind of facial manipulation. Your face should be serene and peaceful. Otherwise, while doing Kapalbhati, people are squeezing the muscles of the face, squeezing muscles of the eyes, and as they stop Kapalbhati strokes and gently open their eyes, their face becomes red, their eyes become red. Now, this is something which is very wrong. This is where we need to understand that Kapalbhati may not be good for people who are having high blood pressure. This is we need to understand. Kapalbhati may not be good for people who are already having lower back issues. Kapalbhati may not be that ideal for people to do faster and longer, those who cannot sit in Padmasana. Because sitting in Padmasana and locking your legs gives you a very firm foundation to go about with those strokes. And without, if just sitting cross-legged and doing it, it is better to do only 60 to 90 strokes in a minute and be peaceful and relaxed. You will get the benefit. It is not that you are not going to enjoy the benefit, but that benefit may be a little less, or maybe halfway you are getting it, but at least you are getting it. But what about neither getting that benefit and coming across the problems? So these strokes have to be understood that way. So many a times when we say Hatha Yoga, people relate it to forceful practice of yoga. Forceful means Ha and Tha balancing. Ha is Surya and Chandra balancing. Not forceful doesn't mean something to do in an awkward position and get affected rather than making it effective. So this is where we need to understand the practice of Kapalabhati. And when he say Bhastra Valloha Karasya, as the ironsmith is making his bellows to function in a proper way. Now there is a functioning where you want lot of heat in the furnace. You make the movement of the Bhastra in one way. And when the heat is proper, ideal, and you just need to let the flow of igniting the flame in a natural way. Then there is another way of functioning of the bellows. So there are two ways of functioning of the bellows. So one way, the natural and the peaceful way, is the Kapalabhati, and the other way where it is manipulative, where the forceful inhalation and exhalation actively done, that becomes Bhastrika. So in both of these explanation about Bhastra Valloha Karasya, in the Kapalabhati version, I will just explain. You will get the idea. Okay, I am Smith. I am having the bellows here, and I am pulling the string of the bellows to bring the pressure and close the bellows or make the bellows come flat. Thereby, all the air inside the bellow is going into the furnace and igniting the flame, making it more higher temperature. Now, this is going on easily. I am pulling it While releasing, what I do, I just release the string. I pull it, release it. I pull it, release it. Pull it, release it. While I release, the bellows goes to its original expansion on its own. But in Bhastrika, it is not the natural release, it is the push. I pull it, I push it. I pull it, I push it. So pulling and pushing of the bellows is like inhalation and exhalation actively done. And when I do this bellows movement in a very natural way, for pulling means I have to expel the air out from the bellows. And as I release it, the air will be filled automatically. Now here we have to understand the same logic. As you relax the abdomen, the air gets filled into the lungs automatically, which is known as passive inhalation. But while exhaling, I am not exhaling naturally. In fact, forcefully giving a stroke, I am expelling the breath or expelling the air out of my lungs. So that is where the Kapalbhati comes in. So inhalation is passive and exhalation is active. Whereas in Bhastrika, inhalation and exhalation both are active, where lot of heat, excess heat is produced. So Bhastrika produces excess heat, we can say, but Kapalbhati is simple. And one more thing I will like to bring your attention to. In the first chapter of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, 34th Sutra, after the explanation about Chitta Prasadanam, the 34th Sutra says, Prachardana Vidharanabhyam va pranasya. Prachardana is expansion, Vidharana is retention of pranasya. Is the word where the breath is expelled forcefully. Vidharana is the word where we say retain it. So when you are inhaling, you are retaining, but when you are expelling it out forcefully. I won't say that Patanjali in another way has said us to do Kapalbhati there. No, not at all. But at the same time, one thing is very clear. This kind of practice will bring about a kind of feeling of happiness within, gladness within, which will lead to a kind of nervous pacification and the harmonizing of the functioning of various systems in our body. So this is where we need to understand the functioning of Kapalbhati Shuddhi Kriya, how it is helping us. I haven't said how it is going to make your or improve your lung capacity, how it is going to make you overcome your sinusitis, how it is going to help you to improve your digestion. This is all our secondary. This is all our least important. What is more important is that happiness, without any reason, that happiness coming to you. And this is happening with Kapalbhati like practices. So it is said that when you do Kapalbhati, and as you are done with the strokes, and when you stop, you will find that your breath has got suspended. Many people call it as a phase of Kumbhaka. Now, let me tell you, Kumbhaka is active voluntary retention of the breath. But here you are not doing anything voluntarily. It is happening. So what having done with the strokes, you just keep still as you are. And you will find that you don't feel like breathing at all. Might be the breath might have got retained in, or it might have retained out, wherever it may be. But you don't feel like breathing in or breathing out. You are just like suspended in that position. And that is a bliss. That is where the pacification is taking place of the nervous system as well as of the whole body. So this is how we have to understand Kapalbhati, where it is literally written in proper translation as rapid performance of Rechaka and Puraka, like emptying and filling up of the bellows of the blacksmith, is Kapalbhati, well known as destroyer of disorders caused by phlegm, well known as the practice which destroys the disorders of phlegm. So disorders of phlegm, let us keep it secondary. But what is primary is the purification, is the purification of the lungs, is the purification of the passage, is the purification of the mind, is the purification of the whole system as an organism. That is more important. Disorders are there or not there, that is altogether a different thing. In the course of time, you will be able to overcome it in due course of time. But at the same time, our focus should be on the spiritual path as the practice leads us ahead. So, any from your side, sir?
What I have seen, is that these practices like say Neti or Kapalbhati are being performed by common people as if they are separate techniques. Meaning, somebody performs only Neti, somebody performs Kapalbhati and some asanas. My wife, for example, performs Kapalbhati and some asanas. But she doesn't perform it as a Shuddhi Kriya. I don't know, she performs it, she feels good, so she performs it. But now you are saying that if they are done wrongly, they can lead to disorders.
Yes, very much.
So this is then I think every practice should have this kind of disclaimer, no? That if you don't perform it correctly, it will lead to disorder.
It has already been said that you should practice it only under the guidance of a teacher. Guru Pratishta Margena. That has been again and again. And if you see the whole book, in all the chapters, at least once he has said, okay, the practitioner should learn it properly from the teacher. That is where the importance of the teacher comes in here. We need to understand this. People see YouTube, people see or read books, people see videos, and they perform. To a great extent, as this now 7 months experience of teaching people online, I have come to the conclusion that yoga is a subject which should not be learned or taught online. I have come to this conclusion. Earlier also, I was not in favor of it. Situation demanded it from us. But now I have come to this conclusion that we are not doing justice to yoga itself by teaching it online. Practical, I am talking about, not the theory things. The thing which we are is in a way fine, but the practicals, we know that all the dimensions. Now imagine Jay Kumar analyzing you doing the practice. Jay Kumar sees only the one dimension of Ashutosh sir performing the practice. What about the other dimensions? What about the breath? What about his comfortability in that practice? So Jay Kumar, with his experience, try to understand with Ashutosh sir's age, with Ashutosh sir's experience, all these things he keeps in his mind and try to judge you. So judging is happening. Proper evaluation is not happening. So when we do judging, the chances of errors are more. But when you do evaluation by being there, the chances of errors are negligible, sir. And that is where the teacher comes across various additional things. And Jay Kumar himself will come across and tell you, Ashutosh sir, you should do this practice this way. फिर आशुतोष सर पूछते हैं ये किधर लिखा है ऐसा करने के लिए, लेकिन जय कुमार क्या कहता है, नहीं नहीं ये किधर लिखा हुआ नहीं है, लेकिन आपके लिए ऐसा करना जरूरी है, because this is where you are going to get help. So this is the experience of Jay Kumar which has helped you. So this is how we have to understand it here, sir.
Question. So all the Shatkarmas have to be done together, or they can be done separately. One day I do Bhastrika, one day I do Kapalbhati, one day I do Neti. Can I do it like that?
Bhastrika is a pranayama. Kapalbhati is a Shatkarma. So one day you can do, but at the same time, I would suggest you do 2, 3. You do Neti Karma, you do Kapalbhati. because doing Kapalbhati after Neti Karma is always beneficial. That combination has to be there. You have done Dhauti Karma, you do Kapalbhati. So Kapalbhati ka combination is coming with almost all the Shuddhi Kriyas. Even Basti, having done Basti Kriya, you should do Kapalbhati. We have said, okay, having done Basti, now, so though the Kapalbhati Kriya is most related with your chest and the upper part, the sinus region, but after doing Basti, if you are doing Kapalbhati, it is going to bring about a kind of renewed feeling of refreshness and happiness within. So do Kapalbhati along with Trataka. First do Kapalbhati and then go for Trataka. See the idea. First do Kapalbhati and then go for the practice of Trataka. You will find it more enjoyable. So this is how we need to understand the things. And it is not that you should do only one. I would suggest you do at least 2-3 practices today, 2-3 practices tomorrow, and different 2-3 practices the third day. And you can start repeating it. Shuddhi Kriyas that way should not be done if you are practicing it regularly. Initially, now suppose if you are just a novice coming to yoga and want to learn Shuddhi Kriya. Initially, I will say you first do it today, then day after tomorrow, and alternate days. And there will be a period where I will say now do it regularly every day. Having done it every day, I will say now slowly reduce it. Come to only 3 days in a week, 2 days in a week. And at last I will say, now it is fine if you do only once, but Kapalabhati, do it every day. That is how, according to the practitioner, according to his ability and needs, we need to go ahead. And I'm not talking about the material needs or the healing needs, but I'm talking about the healing towards spirituality. The person becoming more and more inclined towards meditative practices, more and more inclined towards pranayamic practices, more and more inclined towards practices of pratyahara. So for that, what are the things? How should be the gradual progress? Otherwise, what happens, sir? You know, people become masters of practicing Shuddhi Kriyas and they remain there only. They do not excel ahead. They are very good in doing Vastra Dhoti, but they are not excelling anyway 1 inch ahead on the path of spirituality. They get stuck over there. Every time that Swadhyaya is also essential. As we are learning in Bhagavad Gita now, along with karma, the jnana of the karma is also essential. Okay, what you are doing, how you are doing, where it is going to lead you. With that understanding, if you do in the yogic practices also, it is going to help you. Otherwise, people feel कि practice कर दिया हो गया योग, वो योग है ही नहीं. We need to be very clear with these facts. I hope I have made you understand with the practice step by step. Yes, sir.
Sir, I have a question. So
Ji.
Kapalbhati can be done standing?
I would say no. We need to have a firm foundation.
Padmasana is better.
Padmasana is better. If not Padmasana, Ardha Padmasana. In fact, there are people who feel firmness by sitting in Vajrasana. Why not Vajrasana? But at the same time, when you're standing, the linear equation of the balance of the body is not going to be that which we have while sitting. So standing is going to make you, with the stroke, going ahead and back as you give the stroke. When you are seated, the trunk is steady and the strokes are performed properly. As I told you, while doing Kapalabhati strokes, your chest should be least mobilized.
Yeah.
Only the abdomen, the diaphragmatic region above the navel region should be seen as movements. And it has to be according to the practice. If that person is going for more strokes in a minute, the subtler the strokes. If that person is doing lesser the strokes, the movement will be more, what you can say, grosser. So the number of strokes matters there, and the number of strokes will matter on the ability of the person, how that person goes ahead and does. So this is how we need to understand Kapalabhati and go ahead. Yes, anything to add into it? Sunil Bhai, Jay Kumar.
So next time in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll be doing some techniques. So you can give your inputs. You're always
Sure.
on silent.
I'm not an island. I just want to be with the flow. I'm enjoying it. When we were talking about the Chaturvarnya today, it came to my mouth. Chaturvarnam should be mostly focused on the kind of positioning of the gunas in that person. The more dominant the guna is leading that person to that kind of varna. If my is more rajasic, I am more rajasic, then my varna should be leading me towards Kshatriya. If I am more sattvic, intellectually being managed, I will lead myself to the Brahmana. If I am more sharp, if I am more chatur, cunning type of personality with my gunas, I will become a businessman, Vaishya. So
Okay,
there
I
it
think
came
we'll
to
not
my
get
mind
into
that I
this.
should share it. But at the same time I felt कि नहीं अभी जो flow चल रहा है उसको चलने देना चाहिए. I should not interrupt it.
Okay. Thank you.
आशुतोष सर enjoyed this. हाँ ये aspect भी है उसके पीछे, ये बात तो सही है.
चलिए, time हो
the,
गया है.
yeah. So anything else to be shared? I will stop here because today we have completed Shatkarma. The next we are starting with the Ashtakumbhak itself, where we will be understanding how to go about with the practice of Purak, Kumbhak, Rechak, and then start doing the practices like Surya Bhedan, Ujjani, Bhastrika, Brahmari, Sitali, Satkari, and all. Okay. So we are coming to the end part of this chapter now, to the Ashtakumbhaka now. So if there is anything to add, please do it. Otherwise, we will stop here.
Sanjay, can while the authors say that the Shatkriyas are the preliminary part to starting of the other practices, could it be that by themselves, Kshatriyas, by themselves, I mean, without the forms of other elements of yoga, can they also be healing and beneficial? I mean,
In
can
individuality,
we? Sorry.
in individuality,
Yeah,
yes, yes, of course, they are very helpful. Just now, Ashutosh sir was saying that there are people who practice only Niti Karma and don't do other yogic practices. They have benefited. There are people who don't do anything else. They do only Kapalabhati, and they say, hey, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm feeling good. But at the same time, the vision, the goal of yoga, as these practices are yogic practices, they are not connecting themselves to that practice. So they are remaining into the karmas. They are not going beyond these facts of karmas and trying to annihilate them. Ultimately, this very text, if you see it in the 4th chapter, it tells us these practices should lead you to a state of complete stillness, where no other things are performed, where no other attachment to the world. अगर कभी मैं खाली कपालभाति अपने भौतिक भोग के लिए अगर मैं कर रहा हूं, तो आई एम यूटिलाइजिंग yoga for materialism, not for spiritualism. It is
So
simple.
That is where that role of the teacher becomes so critical.
Yes.
Teacher has to lead the student by the finger. करते करते कब वहां पहुंचा देता है मालूम नहीं चलता और नहीं चलना चाहिए.
और आज के डेट में सुनील, I would go ahead and add this. The teacher also should have that inclination of spirituality.
Of course.
क्योंकि आज जो प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं ना, they are all studio teachers. We have that. So not to say any more further, लेकिन कभी कभी मैं देखता हूं कि हम जो सीखते थे और हम जो सिखा रहे हैं उसके विपरीत जो हो रहा है आसपास, तो दुख होता है कि हम योग के साथ में कितना जस्टिस कर पा रहे हैं.